Do the Swedes agree with their government's migrant payout scheme? Is Sweden's government taking the right approach by offering a large payout to migrants willing to leave the country? Or does this policy contradict the nation's reputation as a humanitarian refuge? Sweden, once known for its welcoming stance towards those fleeing war and persecution, has taken a drastic turn by proposing a significant increase in the cash grant offered to migrants who voluntarily return to their home countries. The new policy, set to begin in 2026, would raise the grant from 10,000 kroner, $978, to 350,000 kroner, $34,000, sparking a heated debate across the nation. While some see this measure as a pragmatic step to address the challenges of migration, others argue it sends a message that threatens Sweden's tradition of openness and compassion. Introduction to the Migrant Payout Scheme. The payout scheme aims to reduce the number of migrants dependent on Sweden's welfare system by incentivizing voluntary repatriation. However, critics argue that the government is prioritizing financial considerations over the integration of refugees and asylum seekers. With Sweden's reputation as a humanitarian superpower at stake, many are questioning whether this policy aligns with the values traditionally upheld by the country. The increase in the grant not only raises ethical questions, but also risks damaging Sweden's social fabric. Historical context: Sweden's approach to migration. For decades, Sweden has been known for its welcoming stance towards migrants, offering refuge to those fleeing conflict and persecution. Since the 1990s, Sweden has taken in large numbers of refugees, with its policies shaped by humanitarian principles. The country's generous social welfare system has made it an attractive destination for asylum seekers. But this openness has also come with challenges, such as integrating newcomers into the labor market and society. The migration landscape in Sweden began to shift dramatically following the 2015 refugee crisis, which saw a large influx of migrants from Syria, Afghanistan, and other war-torn countries. Since then, the country has struggled to assimilate many of these individuals, leading to a rise in anti-immigration sentiment. The new payout scheme is viewed by some as a continuation of this trend, aimed at curbing migration and addressing the difficulties associated with integration. Government's rationale behind the policy. The Swedish government, led by Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson and supported by the far-right Sweden Democrats, argues that the increased grant is a necessary step to reduce the social and economic burdens associated with migration. According to officials, the higher payout is intended to encourage more migrants to voluntarily leave Sweden, which could potentially save the government money in the long run. By decreasing the number of individuals dependent on state benefits, the policy is expected to ease financial pressure on the country's welfare system. Supporters of the policy also claim that reducing the administrative hurdles for applying for the grant will lead to greater uptake and help migrants who are struggling to integrate or find work in Sweden. The government believes that by offering a generous financial incentive, it is providing an opportunity for individuals to rebuild their lives in their countries of origin, rather than facing long-term dependency on social support in Sweden. Public opinion. Support for the payout scheme. A segment of the Swedish population agrees with the government's stance, believing that the payout scheme is a pragmatic approach to addressing the issues posed by migration. With rising concerns about crime, social cohesion, and the strain on public services, some Swedes view this policy as a sensible solution. Those who support the measure argue that Sweden has been too lenient with its immigration policies, leading to challenges in assimilating migrants who struggle to adapt to Swedish society. Polls indicate that there is significant backing for stricter migration policies, particularly among supporters of the Sweden Democrats. These individuals see the increased grant as a way to regain control over Sweden's immigration system and prioritize the needs of native-born citizens. The government's focus on repatriation aligns with the views of many who feel that migrants who do not integrate should not be allowed to remain in the country indefinitely. Criticism and opposition to the policy. Despite some support, there is considerable opposition to the payout scheme, with critics arguing that it undermines Sweden's long-standing commitment to humanitarian values. Opponents, including human rights organizations and migration experts, contend that the policy sends a negative signal to migrants, suggesting that they are not welcome in Sweden. This approach, they argue, risks further marginalizing an already vulnerable group. The criticism is not limited to left-wing political parties and advocacy groups. Even some members of the government-appointed inquiry have expressed concerns. Many Swedes fear that the policy could damage the country's international reputation and lead to increased xenophobia. Comparison with other European countries. Sweden is not the first European country to offer financial incentives to encourage migrants to return to their home countries. Denmark, for instance, provides a grant of approximately $15,000, while Germany, France, and Norway offer smaller amounts. However, Sweden's proposed increase is significantly higher than what is offered by its European counterparts, raising questions about the policy's cost-effectiveness. The success of similar programs in other countries has been mixed. Denmark's grant increase led to a slight uptick in the number of migrants willing to return, but it did not produce a dramatic change. This raises doubts about whether Sweden's substantial increase will have the desired impact. Critics argue that if other European nations have struggled to achieve meaningful results with lower payouts, Sweden may face similar challenges even with a more generous grant. The impact on Sweden's social welfare system. The Swedish government's decision to introduce a higher payout scheme is partly driven by concerns about the financial sustainability of its social welfare system. The country's generous cradle-to-grave benefits have been increasingly strained by the growing number of migrants relying on state support. Proponents of the new policy argue that reducing the number of beneficiaries could help stabilize the welfare system and ensure that resources are directed toward those most in need. However, opponents argue that the policy fails to address the root causes of migration-related challenges, such as the lack of effective integration programs. Critics suggest that the funds allocated for the payout could be better spent on providing language training, job assistance, and other initiatives aimed at helping migrants become self-sufficient members of society. Ethical considerations and humanitarian concerns. The ethics of incentivizing migrants to leave Sweden through financial means are heavily debated. Some argue that offering cash grants to encourage people to leave runs counter to the country's humanitarian principles. This perspective holds that Sweden should focus on welcoming and integrating those in need rather than pushing them away. Furthermore, there are concerns about the implications for migrants who return to countries still facing instability or conflict. Humanitarian organizations warn that the increased grant may lead some individuals to make decisions driven by financial desperation rather than genuine safety. The political landscape and influence of the Sweden Democrats. The Sweden Democrats' influence on the country's migration policy cannot be understated. As a key partner in the coalition government, the far-right party has successfully pushed for stricter immigration measures, including the increased migrant payout. The party's roots in anti-immigration sentiment have shaped the political discourse, leading to a hardening of Sweden's traditionally liberal stance on migration. The future of Sweden's migration policy. The increased payout scheme marks a significant turning point in Sweden's migration policy, signaling a departure from its humanitarian legacy. While the government hopes that the financial incentive will encourage more migrants to return to their home countries, the policy's long-term impact remains uncertain. The debate over the migrant payout scheme is likely to continue, with questions about the policy's fairness, cost-effectiveness, and alignment with Swedish values at the forefront of public discourse. If you found this discussion insightful and want to stay updated on more topics like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, BeyondBorder. Your support helps us bring you the latest news and in-depth analysis. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking content and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.